Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Folks, we have got quite an intriguing case study here today on how a leading toy and novelty distributor has been truly changing the game when it comes to delighting their customers and providing a path forward for more scalable, quality-driven growth. A big part of this successful initiative has been solving big time shipping challenges. Hey, we all are faced with shipping challenges, right? As we try to answer that question, where's my stuff? Leveraging innovative technology and leadership muscles, what this organization has done. You're going to see how it's been able to cut freight and labor costs, speed up order fulfillment, boost customer satisfaction, all that and more without adding more staff to the payroll. How about that? So stay tuned as we learn how and why from two industry leaders here today. Very actionable conversation teed up. So I want to get to work and we'll welcome in our esteemed guests here today, starting with Brett Johnson, IT Director with A&A Global, an incredible company that started back in 1938 and it's transformed into a powerhouse of industry where A&A is a leading toy and novelty distributor. Now, Brett brings a ton of technology and leadership experience to the conversation today. And when this Maryland resident has a little free time, you're gonna find Brett enjoying the outdoors, biking and camping and many other things. So joining Brett today and back with us once again, 30-year industry veteran and the innovative founder and president of RateLinx, Shannon Vaillancourt, who provided the powerful tech behind A&A's transformation. And hey, when Shannon isn't moving mountains out in the industry, he's one of the biggest true fans of the sport of golf you'll ever find. So I want to welcome in Shannon and Brett. Hey, Brett, how you doing?
I am doing great. How are you today?
Outstanding. And thanks so much for joining us and sharing your story and your expertise. And Shannon, welcome back. One of our longest running esteemed featured guests. Shannon, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Outstanding. We've got a big story to get into today. Hey, Maharaj, great to see you via India. And Bud is back with us from Webster, MA. Up there in the Northeast. Looking forward to y'all's take here today. Shannon tuned in from Phoenix, where it's a bit warm, I believe, bit warm. And of course, Bill Stankiewicz watching today with executives from beautiful Dubai. Outstanding. All right, so Brett and Shannon, we got a lot of stuff to get into. And I want to start with you, Brett. For context, important context, share a little bit more information about A&A Global and your role at the company.
Sure, and thank you again for having me on today. Like you said, A&A Global started in 1938. It was a one-man operation, a vending machine supplier.
Okay.
And over the years, we've grown into a large distributor and manufacturer of toys, electronics, games, plush, candy, and more. And we service the redemption and amusement markets, as well as national retail and grocery chains. And our own candy brand, Coco's, is actually distributed internationally now.
Okay.
Like you said, we're headquartered in Maryland. I've worked in wholesale distribution for the last 17 years and spent the last 7 of those here at A&A as the IT director.
Outstanding. And as we were talking pre-show, I think I can share this. Man, y'all have been moving a lot of those rubber duckies that we find in Jeeps everywhere. Is that right, Brett?
We sure do. It's one of our hottest sellers. All sorts of rubber ducks. Yep.
Outstanding. Well, great to have you. I can't wait to dive into the story. And for folks that may, Shannon, you've seen Shannon Vaillancourt with us dozens of episodes over the last few years. It's incredible what he and the RateLinx team are doing. If you're new to Shannon Vaillancourt, he's a recognized innovator in supply chain performance, especially when it comes to logistics data analytics. In fact, he and the RateLinx team have been reshaping the logistics landscape for years with some of the nation's largest retailers, CPG manufacturers, and many other industrial leaders like A&A Global. So Shannon, great to have you here today.
It's always great to be on and talk with you guys about transportation. It's so exciting.
I am too. And folks, we got a bunch of folks in the chat. Christiana from New Hampshire. I bet it's nice. I hope it's cooler up there. Timothy from New Jersey. Skyla. Yes, bunch of East Coast folks in the chat here today. And we look forward to y'all's perspective on a great story here today. So, Brett, we want you to set the stage for us. Can you share what was happening at A&A Global that made you start going down the path looking for a new TMS?
Yes, and you've heard it probably before, but it all kind of started with COVID. COVID had a pretty big impact on our industry. If you think about the markets we sell to, and fortunately we weathered those storms and we took advantage of some unique opportunities. And as a result, we came out of COVID with a very rapid increase in our transaction volume. As people were still getting back to normal, our staff was dealing with a 2 to 3 increase in our package counts compared to those same time periods pre-COVID 2018, 2019. And so we have added about 100,000 square feet of warehouse space in the last couple of years, and there's more on the way. And what we've learned pretty early on was the previous TMS solution just couldn't keep up with us. In fact, the performance actually got worse as things got busier. And when we tried to deal with that, we found that TMS vendors' internal changes, product roadmap, they just didn't really align with what our needs were anymore.
All right. That posed significant roadblocks and challenges. I want to dive a little bit deeper before I get Shannon to comment here. Tell us more about some of the other roadblocks that A&A Global faced with your previous shipping systems that really told you in red blaring lights maybe that you need a much more flexible and integrated TMS.
Yeah, absolutely. I use this example a lot, but it really comes down to off the shelf versus a toolkit. The previous TMS was off the shelf. It was not flexible. You get what you get, and we frankly outgrew what it offered. That's a lot different than RateLinx, which is more of a toolkit that you use to build the product that you need. And RateLinx has a fantastic staff that knows how to use those tools to accomplish that. Like I said, as our business continued to grow, the annoyances that we've lived with for the last few years really became real problems, showstopper problems. And because we weren't really able to get the support and help that we needed, we knew that we had to move on.
That support and care, which we're going to talk about in a second. But it sounds like to me, Shannon, this is a big common thing from some of our other conversations. Finding the right partners that can help you scale. As you heard there from Brett, man, they're growing and delighting their customers at the same time. Shannon, do you hear stories like A&A Global's often where companies are dealing with a really rigid and non-flexible TMS that has data and integration issues as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's not unusual to run into that. In our space, there's a lot of different levels of TMS out there, and what they had before was great until they grew. That's where you've got to make sure that you're with a provider that can continue to grow with you, and that's where when we put together the solution, when I put this together 23 years ago. That was what I was always thinking about, is how can we get with a customer that maybe has a need today that maybe isn't too much, and we can put ourselves in there and then they can grow with it as they need to. That way they never have to make a change, because we find that, changing out your TMS is very disruptive, and it can really, throw some companies back a bit on their growth curve if they can't keep up system-wise. So that's why we built it this way. It's not unusual that we run into it a lot with other customers.
And that's helpful perspective. And we're going to talk more about how y'all managed to make implementation a lot less disruptive. So stick around, folks, as you get tips on that. By the way, Steve tuned in from Baltimore. Hey, Steve, let us know what you think the Ravens are going to do in this upcoming season. We're talking about that pre-show. And Todd tuned in from beautiful Scottsdale. Great to see you, Todd. Okay, let's keep driving. Let's talk about speed. Brett and Shannon, speed, man, organizational velocity, supply chain velocity is of the essence to keep your customers happy, really delighted while driving revenue, right? Brett, what else was slowing down your shipping operations in that previous state?
Well, I've mentioned off the shelf before, and what that really means is a sort of a net consensus of what the TMS vendor decides everyone needs the most, rather than what we need specifically. And so what you get is you get a lot of features that are crammed into a product that results in too many clicks, keystrokes per order. We found that our shippers were forced to enter too much data manually, and that, of course, opens room for user error.
Yep.
Our previous system had a real-time connection to our ERP. It was a live connection. And if it froze or we had some type of communication problem or interruption, we could lose the data for the entire shipment. And, if you can imagine on your busiest day in the warehouse having to stop and repack a 30, a 40, a 50 package system, shipment in your system, it was a real time killer.
Yep.
And like I said before, as transaction volume increased, the instability just became a bigger problem, and it kept slowing down. And we were at a point in some of our busiest days when we've got shipping processors that are waiting sometimes a minute or more for data to transmit. I'm not talking about the process of weighing the boxes and putting the labels on. I'm talking about they would click the button and stand there for a minute waiting for something to load on the screen. And you just multiply that across all of those shipments every day, and it was a terrible time sink. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't all just technical issues. The previous system did have some limited reporting tools. Again, what it felt everyone needed the most, not what we needed specifically. So most reporting came to IT as custom SQL reports that we would have to invest time to do. And the sales team had rate quoting tools, but tools produced inaccurate results, and that caused issues. And another issue we had with the previous TMS was that they would charge you per LTL carrier to rate shop. So let's say we're shipping to some place where you could potentially have 10 or 15 different LTL carrier options to choose from. We didn't have access to see those. We could only see the options we paid to see. And so that was an issue as well.
All right. So Shannon, I was trying to keep up with all that Brett laid out there, and that's a lot. But manual data entry, which we've talked about lots and lots of times, all the rework, man, who likes rework? No one. The waiting may not be the hardest part, as Tom Petty used to sing about, but it's not fun to have everybody waiting around to do stuff. And of course, lack of visibility, Shannon, which you have made a career of finding innovative ways of providing visibility to supply chain teams out there. But I want to ask you this, Shannon, how much do issues like slow carrier onboarding and manual invoice reviews impact a company's ability to ship efficiently and protect margins?
Oh, I mean, I've seen this from day one. I remember, back in the early 90s, I remember one of the very first installs I ever did at a customer. So this was back when, this will date me, but this is back when UPS and FedEx made a change. Actually, it was UPS that made a change. So back in the day, you never had to capture ship to address or anything, believe it or not, when you were doing your UPS, because there was no such thing as PLD uploads or anything like that. And we had to add the 3-digit zip code we had to capture. And I'll never forget, I was on site and we make the upgrade, and the customer's out there with his stopwatch. Honest to God, he's got stopwatch and he's like timing it. And that's just from the shipping side. So my whole life, it's been burned into my brain. It's all about speed and efficiency, whether it's, they scan the order, it's got to come in now. And then when they hit ship, it's got to print the label now. Nobody likes to wait for anything. And when you're trying to scale and you're trying to get things done in a warehouse, the last thing you want to do is slow everybody down, whether it's the shipping piece, whether it's the, adding additional options. The whole point of the system, it's a multi-carrier system. So why would you not allow the customer, from our perspective, why would you not allow the customer to make it a true multi-carrier system? It's like, that's the whole point of why they bought this thing. It's not only to transact the freight so they can get their product out the door, but it's so they can do it as efficiently as possible and run their business. So that's why we've created the solution the way we did. But yeah, it's mind-boggling to me. But then again, I celebrate it because that helps us tremendously because we're very different.
I like that. Man, we could dial in your response there in so many different ways. But speed. and the market and the requirement for speed is like never before, and it will continue to grow up. And then secondly, paying a penalty to optimize your supply chain. That's no fun. We've got to do away with that out in the marketplace. Really quick, Valen's tuned in from Atlanta right here where it's really warm. Looking forward to your take on this conversation here today. And back with us, Andrew from Shropshire. Great to see you here today. Look forward to your take on this great story. All right, so Brett, let's get to the selection process, right? I always love diving into the selection process because while selection and due diligence has been around since the caveman days, still there are ways we can do it better. What were your non-negotiables during the selection process as you were looking for a TMS solution?
Well, not to oversimplify things, but we needed a solution that could keep up with us and remain stable. And we needed a partner that was there when we needed help. And by the way, Shannon, we did stopwatch you too. We just use iPhones, not a manual
anymore. It was the tick, 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 60 minutes.
Love it. So what? Moving from analog. So you threw me off with the stopwatch. Moving from analog to digital. I like that. I like props. What specifically, though, Brett? What specifically needed to be faster and easier? Two of my favorite words.
Well, I mean, stability and reliability in the sense that I talked to you about those delays. That was a big impact, right? The LTL and the parcel teams we have in our warehouse have significantly different workflows. Both of those workflows needed fewer manual steps, less user entry, less room for user error. The sales team needed a rate quoting tool that produced results they can trust, that were accurate. The reporting and the dashboarding tools we use now are faster, more user friendly because not everything is custom, and obviously getting technical support, going from a provider that had sort of the traditional help desk queue where you get stuck at tier one, the TMS software equivalent of have you tried turning it off and back on again, where with RateLinx, we have a dedicated account team. I'm always speaking to the same people every time. They are super accessible and responsive, and they know my environment, which saves a ton of time when there's an issue we have to troubleshoot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's quite a laundry list there. I love it's really important for sales professionals to have information and quotes they can trust and use out in those conversations. Just like technology needs to be focused with user experience in mind. I love you mentioned about the dashboards and the reporting. They've got to be approachable so folks can do things with it, right? But technical support. So Shannon, I want to focus in there with all of your countless conversations with business leaders, customers, prospective customers out there. How often do companies mention technical support as a key factor when choosing a TMS?
Yeah, that's often the leading reason why they're talking to us. It's either about support, making sure that they get what they need, or the fact that they're not getting what they need, and that's what's causing them to now look for another solution out there. Because it's not, this is a mission critical application. If A&A Global can't ship their product out the door, if this system stops them from doing that, they can't invoice their customer, they can't collect, and then it's going to ruin their reputation with the customer, which has a large impact. So if anything does go wrong, whether it's just a question about something, you got to be able to respond to it very quickly. And that's why we've really made sure that we keep a real, dense amount of expertise in the area with the type of ERP that Brett has, because his ERP, has some little nuances to it that you have to understand. And that's where, from the integration perspective, to provide the speed, we're doing things for A&A and that ERP that we don't have to do for any other ERP. I mean, it just it's not needed. But again, we have that capability, so we can provide what looks to be a very seamless, very quick, interface. And then if there's any questions, he's got the same team that he talks to that understands. You have to understand because it's just different how we have to deal with it.
Shannon, helpful perspective, and I'm going to go back to Brett. Getting past level 1, have you restarted the system? How often have we all gotten that as we call in help desk? Right, we got to get past that. Hands-on, savvy help that can go far deeper and meet them where the customers are. Brett, Shannon touched on integration. You've touched on integration a couple of times. Having a TMS that was better integrated was a non-negotiable. What made integration so critical for A&A Global?
I mean, it's absolutely critical, and we needed a system that could plug into the existing tech stack. You know, we didn't want the tail to wag the dog here and replace a bunch of components that were working well for us just to fix something that wasn't working well for us.
Right.
In 2024 and 2025, the whole organization took on the process of Lean Six Sigma training and process review. A lot of people are familiar with. It's fantastic. And we wanted to resolve workflow problems by exploring integrations such as the Cubiscan tools, the rate estimating tools in our e-com store, a mobile shipping label printing project, and many more projects currently in queue.
Yep.
And that opens a lot of doors for us.
And we're going to walk right through some of those open doors. And I've got my eye on you in case you have any more props, Brett Johnson. It looks like you got a lot of options behind you.
Got some great stuff.
You sure do. All right. So speaking of your last response there, Brett, this is, I think, a really important question. Walk us through what ScanForce, Cubiscan, and mobile printing do, and how tying them along with Salesforce into your TMS made your shipping workflow even more efficient.
Well, ScanForce is our WMS system, and it's fantastic. We're very happy with it. It runs on the Android handheld scanners that the order pullers in the warehouse use. It runs on touchscreen monitors at our packing stations on our packing lanes. And as an order moves from our ERP into ScanForce for the picking and packing processes, it will then move into RateLinx for shipping. So the mobile printing I mentioned, the mobile label printing I mentioned, was actually a partner project between ScanForce and RateLinx. It was something that was inspired by, it was actually inspired by the company that gave us our RateLinx reference call before we signed the deal. And we said, man, that's we've never thought about that before. And what that means is our parcel department has just this year shipped probably over 100,000 full case items, meaning they come straight off of the truck onto a shelf in the warehouse, straight off the shelf. We put a FedEx label on it and get it out the door.
Gotcha.
And we've always loaded those full case items onto the packing lanes, not because they need to be packed, but they needed to be on lanes to make their way to the shipping stations to be processed. We don't even need to weigh them. That data is already recorded, but they needed to be on those lanes. The mobile print project lets us bypass those lanes. We have Zebra mobile battery-powered wireless label printers. And so now our order pullers can go straight to the shelf, scan an item, it's going to print a FedEx label, and they put it straight on the box. They take it right to the FedEx truck, and it stays off the lane entirely. It makes the order processing faster, and it's going to free up a ton of space on the lanes and reduce traffic jams. So that's the mobile printing. And I mentioned Cubiscan. Last winter, we invested in our first Cubiscan S9, and that's a piece of equipment that's a pallet dimensioner. And it ties in with a pallet wrapper and a pallet scale. So as you are wrapping and weighing your pallets, the Cubiscan is capturing the dimensions. And then we store that data, and we use that data to calculate the appropriate freight rates for any given LTL shipment. And our RateLinx team used the RateLinx toolkit, right, to build an integration that can pull all of that detail that the Cubiscan is capturing into their ShipLinx shipping client software, and we just transmit that and pass it right on to the carriers. And not only that, this was we worked with RateLinx on a very highly customized bill of lading to show all this data that we've been capturing and to put it right in the carrier's faces. But we also needed to make sure that the customers could see the data that they need on the bill of lading for their sign off. The project is brand new. It's only been live for a few weeks, but we've already seen a pretty significant reduction in carrier reclassifications due to choosing the wrong freight class. 25, 30% reduction in those reclassifications so far. Another cool thing about the Cubiscan is it also takes photos of the pallets as they're being wrapped, and it's taken the dimensions. So we internally developed an automated process to create LTL shipment notification emails and send those out to our customers. And those photos the Cubiscan takes are included as attachments, of course, but those tracking emails are also able to bring in PDF copies of the BOL. And that's only possible because we can leverage the RateLinx API to get that data automatically as we need it. Before RateLinx, those LTL tracking emails were being composed manually by our customer service staff every day.
Wow.
And it was, on busy days, it could take hours. So when you free up that staff time and they can spend that time doing other things, we are reallocating, just today, anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 of staff time a year, and that is going to continue to grow as time goes on. And the data we're sending to the customers is better as well. One of the biggest issues that we face today with our current e-commerce platform is the ability to give accurate rates for really anything other than straight basic FedEx parcel. It's one of many reasons we are implementing Salesforce Commerce Cloud as our new e-commerce platform. And that new platform is also going to be able to leverage the RateLinx API to do the shipping estimates for the customers live as they're shopping online. And it's going to be a much improved estimate as well, a lot more accurate. And the reason that's important is because many of our web customers place large orders online. And those orders might need to go out LTL. It might be more practical to send them out parcel ground.
Yeah.
But those customers need to be presented with all the possible options, and they can choose the best option for them based on their delivery needs. Another thing that makes our rate estimate process a little more complicated is how we calculate the amount that we're going to bill the customer. There are a lot of conditions in there, and RateLinx has to be able to acknowledge and apply them. And we know that all of this is going to work in e-com, because everything I just described has already been built out as a rate quoting tool internally for our sales staff when they're putting orders into the ERP. It already exists. We've been using it for months. It's fantastic. So we were able to transpose much of that work and logic into Salesforce relatively quickly.
I tell you what, Shannon, Brett has just shined a big old light in a moving ecosystem, tech stack that's delivering goodness in so many different ways. So I got to ask you this. How do you handle that kind of complex integration, especially as I've mentioned, all these different business applications are really important in delighting customers?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it sounds like before us, they used to have to ship uphill, both ways, I guess, or something.
Yeah. Careful with both ways, yeah.
Just like that.
What's interesting is because, our solution is cloud-based, but we're doing all of this integration inside their firewall. So we're not opening up any ports or anything like that in their firewall, but we're still leveraging the cloud part of our system. But we have these integration toolkits that sit inside the firewall to do all of this stuff. And just like the mobile printing, the other customer that he saw that at, they have a completely different ERP.
Right.
So it's not like it was another customer with the exact same ERP. And that's where we're able to take those components and, kind of almost copy them over into the environment that A&A Global needs. And they can almost use it out of the box. We have to make a few little tweaks just based on their specific data. But again, that's how we're built. The real term is extensibility. is what our system is.
Okay.
So we talk about it being custom, but it's really, we're extending our own capabilities, and the solution was built that way. So we have a layer where we're able to just add on a little bit. So that way the scope of it is pretty small from our perspective. So it's very easy to support, and we can do it very quickly, and we can deliver something that looks very complex. And you can't really tell that it's not part of standard product because of how it just kind of fits all together. And that gives any one of our customers pretty much, I mean, any kind of capability we've ever done and then some. So that's where a lot of our installs are a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm going to take a little bit from this one. And then now for Brett, I'm going to add 2 more fields to it because that's what they need. But the basic logic is there. And that also helps you get the new functionality in place and live faster because you're reusing more code. You know, in this industry, what makes us always different, and I always joke about this, but it's true, is, you know, think about when you go buy a new car, everybody's excited, right? It's a new car, everything's going to be great. You know, finally get rid of that old car where I just wasn't sure if it was going to make it anymore. You get the brand new car, it's always going to start. You never worry about it. But with software, it's the opposite. Nobody wants the new software. New software is not great. You know, it's not tried and true. It's, you know, the bugs haven't been worn out. You know, like it's this physical thing, and I got to wring out the bugs out of that new software. And it's like, that's why our reusability and kind of putting these pieces together allow, you know, Brett and his team to really be confident with whatever they dream up, because we probably have come across something like it. So we're not doing that much really new code, and that allows us to deliver very fast as well.
Shannon, it's an interesting perspective. And whether it's the automotive analogy you mentioned, which is a good one, or jeans. No one wants a nice, crisp pair of jeans. They all want to be stone-washed. I guess that was a 90s throwback, or just beaten up, you know, well-worn, so they're real comfortable and they work well. I got to ask you this, though, Shannon. There's these integrations we're talking about that you and the RateLinx team did for Brett. How long did that take? I'm curious.
You know, I mean, we're talking anywhere from days to a few weeks, depending on the scope of the project. I mean, the actual integration itself doesn't take very long. You're probably looking at a few days. And then it just comes down to the testing and the training and then the go live. So we're able to deploy a lot of this stuff in weeks, not months.
You're moving. That's a common theme in our previous conversations. And Brett, I got to ask you this. And I bet our audience wants to know too. How long would the same project have taken with your previous TMS?
Maybe that's a trick question, because I think the short answer is all of the projects I mentioned, if they weren't impractical, would be completely impossible with the previous TMS. That off-the-shelf approach means that it's really hard to get new features put into standard product for general release. It can take, you know, anywhere from months to years, and sometimes you have to pay to play. So I would say probably not even doable.
Man, Shannon, that's got to bring a smile to your face. Talks about the differentiating factor out there. Got some great comments here and some questions. And what we're going to try to do, Jerry, appreciate the question, and Bud, appreciate those questions. We're going to try to power some post live stream conversations. I'm sure, Shannon Vaillancourt, you always welcome post live stream conversations. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Always. And Hussein, welcome in from Saudi Arabia. Great to have you here. Looking forward to y'all's take on the conversation. All right, Brett, let's keep driving. You know, there's a tidal wave of market noise and technologies and options these days, some proven, and some of the new sparkling vehicles that Shannon was talking about a minute ago that don't have all the bugs and defects worked out just yet. What made RateLinx and the ShipLinx TMS really stand out as you were evaluating that tidal wave of vendors?
Well, right off the bat, you know, we knew why we needed to leave the previous TMS. It was time to tier up to a bigger product, to something that was more powerful and more flexible. And in our ERP's ecosystem, there really weren't a lot of options. So we knew that we were going to be building an integration that probably didn't exist yet. And as we spoke to many software providers out there, including some very, very large ones, we were pretty disappointed in the lack of flexibility from some of these, quote unquote, enterprise tier TMS offerings. And many of the products were disqualified during the initial discovery calls. We'd hit a technological or design impasse, or often we'd ask really specific technical questions and bring up specific concerns, and we'd be met with somewhat generic pre-sales responses that didn't give us a lot of trust. Now with RateLinx, Shannon himself was involved in the conversations from day one. And I mean, that in itself is a big positive, considering the level of support that we were coming from at the time, to have Shannon in there himself. And I felt like he approached the project with an engineer's mindset, trying to solve a problem. He was not approaching it as a salesman trying to close a deal.
Ooh.
And ultimately, RateLinx came to the table with a plan that was the best fit for us and what we needed, and gave us the highest level of confidence to move forward by far.
Not taking anything away from folks out there trying to make a deal happen. Y'all know that. But I love that peer into Shannon's mindset, because it has been a common thread through our conversations here over the last few years. Shannon, let's talk implementation for a minute. It's one of my favorite parts of our previous conversations. Because you keep it real. What's your philosophy on implementation? Because as we all know, a lot of these projects, TMS projects or others, they stall out or take forever, or no, oftentimes they never deliver.
Yeah, and I mean, we've always taken the same approach, and it's about, it's very, again, I'm an engineer, so that's why you get the engineer feel when you talk to me.
Yep.
I have an electrical engineering degree. You can't get that out of me. And on the implementation side, the approach we take, it's really about gathering the requirements correctly, being very transparent in those requirements. And that's why we have the documents that we fill out. Our functional specs have screenshots, have step-by-step direction. That way, we're all talking about the same thing. It's always funny when I've done this in the past years ago at previous jobs that I've had, where you describe what it's going to look like, and then you finally show them the screen, and it doesn't match what they thought in their head. And that's why we do things the way we do it. It just speeds everything up, and it makes it easy. Because it's not, I always have to tell people here when they're doing the specs, I said, look, it's not about you being right in the spec. It's putting down what you think they said and what you think we are going to deliver. And then you got to collaborate with the customer, and they're going to look at it and go, oh yeah, that's exactly what I wanted here. But that part, I need this little change made. And then you make the change. So that way, when we implement, it's just faster. And I think that's what we've learned. And then it's supportable, because now I've got all this documentation. So it's like, I don't have to crack the code open to look at anything. I just look at the spec, and it pretty much tells me how this whole thing is supposed to work. And then you can pull the technical stuff out of it and make it a user guide for the end user. So it's like, it's a 2-for-1. I learned this a long time ago, and that's where being an implementer, I think, really helped me, because, I used to be the one that would go on site, do the install, and then have to support it. And, it's hard to do without the proper documentation. And I think that's what makes the support so good as well. There's no guesswork here. So I know that, he's got his team that he deals with, but when that team takes vacation, which every once in a while we have to let them do, the next person can stand in, and it's not a big drop off at all. We've got all the documentation and support here to handle it.
I like it. No guesswork and no switcheroos. And Shannon speaks about that with passion and quite a track record. We got some great comments here. And again, post live stream conversations, questions and comments around USPS integration and some of the other features, testing, integrations. Folks, we encourage you, reach out to Shannon Vaillancourt. We'll share some links in a minute, and we can answer all of those and then some. Brett, again, I love the no switcheroos, keeping it real. What you set out to build is what ultimately is delivered. That's so important across the technology space. But freight audit, I understand you added freight audit just a few months into the overall journey here. What drove that decision? And better yet, what changed?
Yeah, we added it after we initially went live with RateLinx. I mentioned before, we have a pretty complex rate shopping process, particularly when it comes to LTL. And as anyone who ships LTL knows, those accessorial and delivery fees can get you. We've always disputed fees with LTL carriers, but often we didn't have the data we needed to keep up with the fight. You know, manually reviewing and disputing freight invoices was almost a full-time position with our volume that we ship. And freight audit isn't going to magically fix those problems. Freight audit is going to give you the tools you need to identify and deal with them and address them to the carriers effectively. When the vendor's invoice matches to the expected shipping charges, great, perfect. The data automatically goes into our ERP. It's queued up for payment. Nobody has to enter anything manually. And that saves us a ton of time. And we automate that majority, and now we just deal with the exceptions that don't go in. And you know, with the data RateLinx has provided, we've been able to identify that by far the majority of invoice exceptions came from those carrier reclassification scenarios I mentioned before. MatchPay revealed the scope of that issue for us, and that helps justify that investment in that Cubiscan pallet dimensioner I mentioned previously, and that makes that problem go away. The second most common scenario is when the carriers were ignoring accessorials that we were clearly submitting on the shipment. And that was a little bit more complicated. RateLinx had to work behind the scenes with each carrier to correct those data mapping issues, and now we've resolved most of that. And again, we're seeing a lot more automation and fewer exceptions as we go forward.
That is music to my ears, and I bet that's very tangible. Big truckloads of friction you're taking out of the operation for your teammates. I love that. Shannon, we've talked about a lot about this particular topic over the years. We got to act like it's 2025, not like it's 1995. Just how often do you hear about shippers manually reviewing invoices, and surprisingly really large enterprises? And why do you think they don't take advantage of an automated invoice reconciliation?
You know, I mean, I think it really just comes down to belief. You know, unfortunately, on the freight industry, what I've seen historically is everyone just feels like that's just the way it is, that there is no better way. And there absolutely is a better way. And that's, I wish I had a better answer for it. It's like, why are they doing it? I mean, there's no good answer that I could think of. But I think they just feel like that's just what they have to do. And the other thing that Brett said that's interesting is a lot of times you kind of get caught up in what you're doing and you lose track of, is it valuable or not? You know, and I mean, I've had discussions with customers where they tell me about the manual that they're doing. And then I start asking them questions about, well, how often does that happen? And they're like, oh, that happens 30% of the time. I'm like, okay. And then how often are you successful at? And they're like, half the time. And I'm like, okay, so 15% of the invoices you're successful on. And how much are those invoices off by? And they're like, oh, they're off by, you know, about 10%. I'm like, okay, so that's 1.5% of your spend that you just impacted. And how much did that cost you to do? And they're like, you know, and then their heads just blow up at that point, because it's like, one, you know, how'd you do math in your head? And then two, it's like, you know, they're doing all the math in their head. And at that point, they're like, oh my God, I'm totally, you know, wasting my time on stuff. It's like, yep.
We
You
can't
are. Put the computer in there. Let it
Right.
do it, and then figure out what's the root cause. Rather than fighting the reclass, fix the problem. That's why they put the Cubiscan in, and they could easily justify it or not. What if it wasn't that big of a problem and it was costing them $1,000 a year? Leave it.
Right.
Congratulations, keep doing it. We legit had a customer that used to do that, where they would on purpose put the wrong weights, and they're like, whatever. If the carrier catches all of them, well, that would have been the weight anyways. Who cares? And if they don't catch some of them, I just got away with it. I mean, these are real
goes on.
conversations I've had, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But they measured it. That's the magic.
Shannon, first off, I do find your mathematical ability amazing. I was struggling to follow you along there. My lesser math skills, math with 2 F's. And secondly, kidding aside, majoring in the minors. We got to be really careful about majoring in the minors and know where we can get, where the juice is worth the big squeeze. It costs so much, especially on return on energy from our workforces and our leadership teams. So, Brett, I think these next couple of questions are going to be a couple of my favorites that I want to pose to you, because I want to talk about impact. So you wanted your shipping operations, as we've established, to be faster, easier, integrated, and more agile. With the new TMS integrated into your ERP and your broader tech stack that you were speaking to earlier, were you able to handle the transition without increasing your IT or operations staff?
Yeah. Keep in mind, we implemented RateLinx at a time when our shipping department was breaking each month's previous shipment total. Month after month, we were just killing it, and the warehouse was forced then to run early shifts, late shifts, some weekend shifts, just to keep up. So the performance improvement compared to the previous TMS was felt immediately. And even though the shipping volume continues to increase during that period of time, we were able to eliminate for the most part, eliminate early shifts and late shifts and weekend shifts. And overtime isn't just a normal standard occurrence in the warehouse anymore. RateLinx fits very well into our larger Lean Six Sigma process improvement approach. When it comes to the warehouse operations, it is a tool for simplifying and automating processes. And when you keep the processes simple, it allows for more effective cross-training of your staff. The better trained that staff is, makes for a more effective workforce, and fewer walls between those departments in the warehouse means better feedback, suggestion, and problem solving from the whole team. And we've experienced a lot of that recently.
Brett, I love it. I love it. I'm really excited about what all this means for your team and the new opportunities for them. And going back to Lean Six Sigma, folks, a lot of our audience knows what Brett's talking about, but at its simplest level, think the relentless pursuit of the elimination of waste and the relentless pursuit of the elimination of defects, right? Especially with processes that take place thousands or millions of times, right? Big gains that can be had by picking and choosing your spots. All right, Brett, I want to keep going down the impact before I get Shannon to comment here, because I bet this is music to Shannon Vaillancourt's ears. Share some examples, a little more examples around your labor cost savings, Brett.
Well, just to continue on with what I was saying before, simplifying those processes, particularly things that had to do with shipping with RateLinx and replacing the previous TMS, and the effective cross-training means a major reduction in the number of temp employees we've needed to keep around to keep up with the workflow. We have reduced the number of temporary warehouse employees by about 36% since January. Overall, about a 34% reduction in temp labor expense. It's saving us over $550,000 a year.
Wow.
Right now.
Oh man, Shannon Vaillancourt, that's incredible. I love when we get down to tangible bottom line impact, and all that seems to be, at least to my ears, to be really big time cost savings, powered at least in large part by simply finding the right TMS partner for A&A Global. Would you say, Shannon, these results are one off, or are they pretty common?
No, they're pretty common. And for us, the hard part is because customers are with other systems, it's hard for them to understand and kind of comprehend how this is possible. And sometimes you got to start small with a customer. That way they can kind of get what we call the kind of RateLinx feel and understand how we can automate a lot of steps. I mean, when it came to the freight audit piece, I mean, I remember that conversation with Brett when he was asking for some report, and I just asked him, like, what do you use that for? Mm. And then he tells me what they use it for, and they use it to audit their freight bills. And I'm like, we've got a way that we can, help with that. And then I showed him how it works and, talked about integrating the invoice in. And he's like, oh my God, that's way better. Let me talk to some people here and all that. But it was just, that's where we talk about, don't work the drive-through, with the customer. It's like, when they pull up and they ask for stuff, I'm always curious, what do you use that for? Help me understand, because we want to make sure that we're delivering the right solution. And it also helps us as we're doing it, be the user to make sure that when they get in front of it, it's going to work the way they're expecting to. So that's how I've always been taught to do this stuff.
Love it. Love it. And folks, if you don't know how your organization's handling freight invoices, you better go check. Could be a massive, massive opportunity. All right. So Brett, we're going to kind of flip the tables a bit. I really appreciate you taking time to share a very actionable story with our audience here, the savviest and smartest audience of global supply chain. We even have old Bud sharing new skill sets, coding. Man, Bud, you're going to tell me more about those coding experiences. But Brett, putting yourself in other folks' shoes out there, other IT operations leaders looking at TMS or supply chain upgrades, what advice would you offer to them?
Looking back over the last year or so, which has been a pretty huge year for us, I can say that the Lean Six Sigma process has made just a giant impact on the way that we evaluate processes and projects and measure their success. That's key, right? You have to measure the performance of your current state. You have to be honest with that evaluation and create truthful metrics and baselines, so you are able to measure your improvements and success once you've made your choices and moved forward. Yeah, just in addition, you have to have input and you have to address the concerns of your stakeholders. And putting the labels on the boxes. If you don't do that, it will come back to haunt you. And Shannon and I actually had more than one conversation like that, where I just kind of throw and as well as some of his staff, where I give him the problem and he pulls an ace out of his back pocket with the solution that I didn't know he had, and we cyber high five. But don't let the limitations of your environment today put any restrictions on the potential of your environment tomorrow. And again, Lean Six Sigma and the tools and processes we learned with that really helped us overcome that.
Brett, I want to make sure everyone heard that. The limitations of your environment today, you can't let it limit the potential of your environment tomorrow. Brett Johnson, that is supply chain and technology poetry, my friend. Shannon, I want to double dip on advice here. What's the biggest myth or misconception buyers have about TMS or freight audit tech?
Well, I think Brett kind of hit it right on the head there with, they're used to working with a provider that, in our words, just takes orders. They don't come up with solutions. And I think a lot of that's the business model. A lot of the other providers out there, they get paid by the hour. So it behooves them to get some convoluted thought from the customer, and that's where the customer typically will solution for them. And the provider loves it because it's a bazillion hours that they're going to charge them for, knowing all well that it's not really going to solve anything, but they don't care. And then once they get down that path, then they're going to have to pay them to unwind it all. That's not how we work. We don't We don't charge those professional services. So it allows us, I think, to have a different relationship with our customers, and it is more solution focused, and it's very collaborative. And that's what I tell customers for. It's like, are you looking for a collaborative relationship to help you with solutions? Just like what Brett was able to do with one of our customers, where he talked to them and saw that they were doing something, even though it was a completely different ERP, and he was able to bring that solution in-house to help them as well. And it's like, that's what we do. We're not always the expert, but we've got a lot of customers that probably are.
And you're in it for the long haul, which I really admire about the RateLinx approach. All right, a lot of good stuff here today. I would offer up, folks, I'll tell you, Brett and Shannon brought it, a very actionable story, and I can't wait to get updates from them. But here's maybe one big takeaway from the whole conversation. Technology should make your job easier, especially your team members' job easier, right? Your customers happier. We got to delight them, and your business stronger and more resilient. A&A Global didn't just implement a TMS. Brett and the team really reimagined how they work. There's a reason they've been around for approaching 100 years and becoming a powerhouse in the industry. And Brett Johnson, I really appreciate you sharing, but more importantly, I appreciate you and your team's approach here. So thanks for being here, Brett Johnson.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. But folks, don't go away just yet. We got some resources that I'd be remiss if I didn't share, because Shannon and the team are finding more and more ways of informing and helping customers out there. And one of those ways, the Insight Conference, hosted by Shannon RateLinx team, is back again, better than ever before, for 2025, October 14th to the 15th in Scottsdale, Arizona. Brett Johnson is going to be keynoting along, I think, his colleague, the VP of Operations, Anton Conway. Is going to be with you, Brett. Is that right?
That's correct.
Outstanding. Movers and shakers, folks, are going to be in Scottsdale with Shannon and the team. We're dropping the link. It is right there in the chat. I'll make sure y'all see that. And then secondly, you could dive in a little deeper into the A&A Global success story that Brett and Shannon have been talking about here today. You see those returns. Goodness gracious. Big numbers there. Learn more. We're dropping a link to that. You're going to find a link to the Insight Conference right there. Tricia, appreciate that. And that case study, you can dive deeper right there. You're one click away from both. And I think we'd offer up one more thing. If you dig Shannon Vaillancourt's been there, done that perspective, you want to connect with him and the RateLinx team, we're dropping a link to that right there in the chat as well. All right. So Shannon, are beyond all the supply chain leadership conversations that will be powered right there in Scottsdale in October? You might just have a little bit of fun in the evenings and get some good grub and whatnot, huh?
Well, what I'm focused on right now, when we get into October, it's football season.
Season. Okay.
I've got ASU defending conference champs, and then the Bears have a new head coach. And I'll tell you what, man, after watching on Sunday, we have a NFL caliber, offense.
Okay.
I'm like, oh my God, this is, and the Pope is from Chicago. This has to be something, right? It has to be a sign.
The powers are aligning. The forces are aligning out there, far beyond supply chain. But folks, check out the conference. Make sure you connect with Shannon and the team that's on the move at RateLinx. Make sure you, by the way, I want to include, you can find Brett and their wealth of products, aaglobal.com. Remember that. Maybe we'll drop the link right there as well. And what a terrific story that Brett and Shannon delivered. So, folks, as you know, first off, I want to thank Brett again. Brett, with the full plate you've got, all the growth you are driving, the innovation, how you're delighting the customers. We all know that's not a 9-to-5 job. Thank you so much for taking time out and sharing and challenging the rest of us to find similar paths for improvement and transformation. Brett Johnson with A&A Global, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You bet. Shannon Vaillancourt, as always, a pleasure. I look forward to reconnecting with you soon, my friend.
Always. And thank you, Brett. Really appreciate it as always.
You too, Shannon.
And I'm pulling for those Bears just for you, Shannon. We'll see how the NFL goes. But folks, you heard a great case study here today. What an incredible one. Here's your homework. You got to take just one thing. Brett and Shannon gave us lots to think about, lots to do. Take something to do with, but take just one thing at least and do something with it. It's all about deeds, not words. That's how we transform industry. We transform our organizations. And my favorite part about this is we help provide opportunities for our hardworking team members and make their days a lot easier. So with all that said, on behalf of the Supply Chain Now team, Scott Luton challenging you to do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. We'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.